And we are back with the LCFC Awards. I know a lot of people have done them already, but we want to make them the best, and we've not had a lot of time to do them. We've got three amazing panels. We've got Dan, Alex, and Glenn with us from North America, and we're going to go through again the 11 awards. We're going to go through most improved player. We'll look at all of them in a second as well. We'll go through all of them. Let us know your comments and who you would pick for each one of them in the comment section down below. But first of all, we'll go straight into the first one. We'll ask around and then we'll see how it goes. So, first player, I'll hand it off to Dan, you first. In terms of the first award we're going to give is the most improved player of the year. So this is basically who's come on the most this year. Have you got any ideas who you've got for this one?
I do. It's between Madison and KDH, and it's tough because Madison has shown like real brilliance in the past, but then had a dip kind of the last season and a half, and this being KDH's first season in the Prem, it'd be kind of tough not to give it to him since he was playing in the championship last year and showed up as one of our best players as the season went on. But I still think I have to give it to Madison. I mean, leading in assists, leading in goals, it was an immense season from him, even though he's, like I said, he's been immense in the past, but to come back after a dip in form and really shine for the whole year, it's got to be him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great shot. It's one that I've got down as well. Alex, have you got anybody? Again, we've got KDH and Madison. I know it's kind of put you on the spot. Is there anybody else you can think of? Anybody else that's improved a lot this year that you think?
You know what? I'm with Dan on this one. I have to give it to James Madison. He had a career year in both goals and assists. And he outplayed, every single call-up to the England squad. So that's saying something. I got to give it to James Madison. He exceeded every expectation that I think, for myself personally, I was calling for him to leave the club at the start of the season. And, when you look at the rate of his play and whatnot, he was an exceptional piece. And you just hope that, he can really just continue on from where he started this season and just continue to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, he's both, again, considering the start he had and the consistency as well. So what we've noticed with Madison, with Glenn, we've come, it's in and out and he's up and down. But this season, he said a consistent level, quite high, a large portion of the season, which we've been asking for, which has been great as well. Is there anybody else, or I'll give you the final pick as well? Who would you pick as your most improved?
I've got to admit, I had it down to the two of KDH and Madison, and I give it to Madders as well. I mean, if you think of it, at the end of the year, he was being booed onto the pitch as a substitute against Burnley. I mean, you could argue the fact that that people were booing the fact that Lookman was coming off because he had a good game in that game. But Madison's performances around that time were definitely short of the mark. And then you forward on and you see like 4 goals in the last 4 games of the season, numerous assists, and just some outright awesome performances, if I'm honest. I mean, and if you listen to his interviews, he's so intelligent. He talks about what he might be lacking in his game. And he's clearly gone out and done something about that. He knew that he had to improve, and he's done that. Like I say, come the turn of the year, he's come on leaps and bounds to the degree where everybody's shouting at Southgate for him not being in the England squad, and not just Leicester fans as well, many others that are saying the same.
Yeah. As you were saying, Dan.
I was just saying, rightly so. I mean, he deserves every bit of stick he gets for not including him, in my mind, after this season.
I mean, that's literally another podcast from another time. I know we didn't mention it. We were a lot of. I think I was saying a lot. I would not be shocked if he wasn't included. And anyway. That's literally another podcast for another time. We can get into that over the summer as well. But yeah, I agree. Again, it was for me. It's got KDH and Madison. I've got Lookman in there as well, just in terms of the levels that he's produced kind of consistently, especially towards the end of the season. I didn't expect. So but I'd agree. I agree with Madison as well for that one. So most improved, we've got James Madison. The next one we've got is Young Footballer of the Season. So for this one, I've limited it at 25 because we've got a young squad as well. There's quite a few players that could be considered young, but you realize, okay, they are under 27. I've said as well because there's so many players in this bracket as well. We'll start with you, Alex. Who have you got for Young Footballer of the Season?
I got to give it to KDH. Played at Luton last year and then comes into Leicester this season and, really fights for his position. And just once he was given that opportunity, he just ran with it and he just kept on running with it. And no one could catch that. Tielemans showed, moments of excellence, but when it came, if you put, Tielemans and KDH on the platform together, KDH just exceeded all those expectations and just blew anybody's, expectations out of the water. So KDH all the way.
Sounds good to me. Glenn, have you got anybody else, or would you agree with Alex?
I think it's pretty clear cut, to be honest. I mean, maybe you can stick in like a Fofana or a Justin in there. Obviously, Fofana coming back from his injury and not being able to show too much, but when he did come back was phenomenal. But KDH has shown us all right from pre-season training what he was going to do. I mean, he came in. All the things I saw online was of him doing like the bleep tests and things like that, and absolutely smashing everybody else. He'd previous to that, he'd been out, as Dan said, he'd been out on loan, came back, absolutely smashed the pre-season, bided his time, and was then given his chance mainly through injuries, but then making it that Rodgers couldn't really drop him. I think one of my favourite KDH moments, it didn't even involve him being on the ball. It was when Maddison equalised against PSV, and he ran over for the celebration, almost caught a beer from the PSV fans, and then goaded them to come on then, forgetting for a second that he wasn't a City fan in the stands and that he was actually a player, which was brilliant. But I think I couldn't look any further than KDH for this.
Fair enough. Dan, have you got anything else, or any other people you'd be interested in mentioning? Or
I mean, I'd love to give mentions to Thomas and stuff, but he's struggled this year. So I mean, the only real option is Dewsbury Hall. I mean, I'm not going to sing the Oasis song, but he's the man.
He really is. And again, Fofana, I think if he had a full season, could have pushed KDH quite close, and it would have been like the previous award where it was between two people. Because I genuinely think Justin as well he's had a good start, but again, I'd agree there. KDH should have been young footballer of the season for me as well, and just thoroughly deserved. And hopefully it's not a theme going too much, not because we don't think he's a great player, just because let's try and give it to other people if we can as well. The next thing I've got is the achievement of the season. I mean, there isn't too many, considering both competitions were not great. So, Glenn, we'll start with you first as well. What would you consider your achievement of the season?
I wanted to try and look at sort of like out of the sort of a bit left field with some of these, but I couldn't, like with the young player with KDH, I couldn't really see past the fact of the Europa Conference League quarter-final and the fact of winning that. I'd rather say that than the achievement of making it to the semi-final. I know we did do that by virtue of winning the quarter-final, but it was the fact of winning the quarter-final, because we let ourselves down, I think, in the semi. Winning that quarter-final was great. After the disappointment of being knocked out of the Europa League, we seemed to accept that the Conference League for what it was, and we then tried to sort of like embrace it somewhat. Because some of the stories coming out at the beginning, I mean, there was pictures of the fact of dogs crapping on the field in various places, and it's like, this is what the Europa Conference League is about, and you're all like, oh my god, really? But we embraced it, and then as the competition went through, there was bigger and more difficult teams to get to. Then, and of course, then we had PSV. So after the goalless draw at the KP, we had it all to do then in Eindhoven, and we didn't have it great in the first half, but I mean, did okay. But the second half, we had the fight and the spirit, and that we seem to have lacked for many other games around that sort of time and a few weeks before in the season. Of course, the flick from Perez, the byline that set up Madders, the teamwork for the Ricardo winner, and during those last few minutes, the limbs in the plastic enclosure after the goal and the final whistle. I think all of that adds up to the achievement for us over at the end of the season.
Fair enough. That makes sense to me. It's one of the ones I've got down. Alex, is there anything else, or would you agree there? Because again, I think Glenn's bit up to the quarterfinal / the semi-final, kind of all included kind of in one. But would 8th in the Premier League top that, in your opinion?
Not really. Well, yes and no. If I'm going to just kind of talk about that, because for me personally, I remember talking about how we were kind of the way our performance was kind of we were kind of showcasing in the middle of the season. I was kind of expecting a bottom of the table finish, like 16th through 17th. So the fact that we finished 8th and we were only a few points off of, European football was kind of mind blowing. So in the sense of like that, you got to kind of look at that in a positive and be like, was it the best season? Definitely not. But like, there's a lot of positives that you can take out of this being like, we could have finished drastically lower. So, finishing 8th, told me at the start of the season, wouldn't have been happy with it because I think we were all expecting, European, football. But now that I look at how the season ended, 8th is pretty good. And I think that's an achievement in itself because I think we, there's times in the season where Newcastle were ahead of us in the table, which was just absolutely horrendous when you actually think about it. So the fact that we're, we finish 8th, a few points off of, Man United and whatnot, I consider it a success in that way.
Fair enough. No, makes sense. Dan, over to you. What would you see as your final achievement of the season?
I'd have to give it to more to Glenn's side as far as making it to that semifinal. I know it's the least of the European competitions, and like you said, everybody kind of dogged it down when we dropped in there from the Europa League. But it's a cup competition, and you're playing against, like, by the time we got into the group stages, we were playing against class outfits like PSV and Rennes and eventually Roma, and you want to win things like that, and getting to the semifinal of a competition like that is no joke. So I mean, I felt pretty good about that. I was really looking forward to seeing us in the final, but have to do better next year. We want more European football. I think that was want to keep stuff like that coming to Leicester City.
And hopefully so in the future, especially with not having Europe and seeing what Arsenal have done with the young squad and what they can do having one game a week. And I know they fell at the last second in getting Champions League football, but it is potential and it is blueprint that we could do that in the future. I'm really looking forward to that one as well. So I'd agree with you as well. So we'd give the achievement of the season to however you want to look at it, quarterfinal or the semi-final of the Europa Conference League, I should say. Hopefully we'll be in the Europa League soon as well. Moving on to the next award, to the underrated player of the season. So this is something that potentially the way I think of it is the one that maybe the mainstream media or the football in general doesn't see. They'll see the Vardys, they'll see that even Maddison to a certain extent. They will see these guys and say these guys are on form. However, as a person that watches them game in, game out, and there's certain players that don't get mentioned. Dan, is there anybody that you can think of for underrated player of the season?
This is a tough one because it'd be like Daniel Amartey is a pretty comfortable pick here, I think, and not that he's not deserving because he put in a lot of really good performances and a couple of really shocking ones. But I looking back through highlights of some of our biggest games, somebody that was there a lot that didn't end up being around in the second half of the season was Bouba Samare. And he filled in for Ndidi a lot, and I guess there's some talk he might be moving on, like hasn't really settled, but it's an outside pick. I really wanted him to succeed at Leicester, so I hope he sticks around and he can flourish here. But I think I would give it to him because he started for against Slavia. He started against Liverpool when we won 1-0. He started the 4-2 against United. I think there's obviously a good footballer there if we can just get his mojo right. So
yeah, I mean it's an outside pick, definitely one that I didn't have down, but I could see what you mean from it. Alex, would you agree with Samori or would you pick somebody else? What are your thoughts on the underrated player of the season?
I think I'm going to give it to Patson Daka. And I know that kind of could also seem like a wild card because I think there was the expectation there at the start of the season. We signed him and everyone was like, oh my God, this is the best signing ever. Patson Daka is going to be this and that. But he wasn't used how we expected him that he was going to be used. But when he did play, like he was exceptional in a lot of ways. And I think the media didn't really, showcase that. If he came up with a really nice goal, they'd be like, oh, Patson Daka scored a great goal. But, coming from a player who, coming from a league where it's, it's not one of the top leagues in the world, and he's coming into Leicester where, he's coming in and, fighting for a position with, Nacho, who came off of an exceptional season last year, and, Jamie Vardy is another. And it's like, he's coming into this position being like, okay, I got to fight for this. And I think the times that he did show up, he did deliver. And I don't think the media really, outside of Leicester City, really was like, Patson Daka's going to be a great player. But I think we're going to start seeing that more and more with the more chances that he's given over the next few seasons.
Interesting one. Again, I didn't have him either, to be honest. But Glenn, up to you. Who would you say your underrated player of the season would be?
It's funny how you say, you've not had either of the two that Alex and Dan have spoken about so far. And I think it's a tough category because you always have somebody that says, "Oh, he's not underrated," or "He's just crap." And if somebody's rated, it's easy. KDH is clearly rated, and not many, if any, would argue with that. But I don't really like the tag underrated. I mean, I actually think Mark Albrighton is maybe underrated by a lot of City fans, and I still rate him. He's not the player that he was 6-7 years ago, but I don't think that he's let us down when he has come into the squad. He's not somebody that you would expect to be in the starting 11, probably at all for next season. But of course, don't dare praise him on social media, or you'll get the "he's past it" brigade out on you. But for this, I'm going to go a little bit left field as well, where some people may say nobody is rated, and look at giving it to Ricardo. I think he goes under the radar a little by some of the fan base, and I think we're still to see the best of him. He had the injury that he got through, struggled a little bit when he first came back, but I think that he's getting back to where he was, or close to where he was. We've seen glimpses of him do it again this season, and I can't wait to hopefully see him back at his best next season. So, Ricky P gets my underrated player of the season vote.
It's a really interesting one because I had none of them three on my list, and I had three of them. I have three of them. So I'll give you my three. My one was Lookman. Considering people don't really pick him, and he is a player that if you watch, a lot of Leicester fans are like, we want to sign him. But outside of that, there isn't a lot of Lookman, who's he? I've kind of seen the name around. Another one I've got is Kelechi Iheanacho, because again, he's kind of been forgotten man, as you're saying, the Patson Dakas. I consider him an underrated player because even though people know about him, the fact that he can come off the bench, and especially towards the beginning of the season, he was unplayable, I think, at times, and people didn't really pay attention. And the other one I've got is Daniel Amati. So I've got the three of them. So I'm unsure what to do here in terms of we've got 6 nominations, and I don't know which one to pick.
I got one more.
Sure, go for it. Just to make things even worse. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, I'm going to throw James Justin into the mix in there as well, because he faced such a terrible injury. And, a lot of people kind of just wrote him off, being like, well, he won't be as good as he was. And, he came back. Nobody really expected much from him. Had one hell of a season, in my opinion. And now he's been called up to the England squad. Like, you got to give him credit for that. Like, did he get attention from media outside of Leicester City? He did, but that was only because he got called up to the England squad. But,
so if he's in the England squad, surely he's rated.
Yeah, by someone at least.
By somebody. Okay, yeah, we could argue that. But how many times have you heard James Justin's name be passed around outside of Leicester City media? Realistically, the only time it's ever been really tossed out is, oh, James Justin made the England squad. That's the only time. No, other than that, it's never been really, maybe last season. Oh, James Justin has had one heck of a season, but he's done. His injury is going to be forced him out for the rest of the season, and that was it.
I like the fact of the Dan Amati one. I mean, he's made some mistakes over the season, but he's been thrown in there in a defence that's not been great. He's for a lot of them, he's been pretty solid, especially if he's got the right player alongside him, and that as well. He was one of the lowest players on FPL for money, so people would buy him as we'll just stick Amati in there and stick him on the bench. And then people were bringing him in because he was like, oh my God, he's getting a few points here. Beyond, I mean, next season though, not because of I think that he's crap, but I don't want to see him too much next season. I want to see his strengthen next season. But for this year, maybe Big Dan.
Well, he's another one. He was in that back line for the Liverpool game that we won 1-0.
Yeah.
And so he put in some big performances. A couple that pulled your hair out, like you said.
Yeah.
don't want to get you going, but he was on the field when we lost to Nottingham in the FA Cup. But
I think his contract's at the end of the year, though, so I don't know what's going to happen with him next season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, and there's been no contract talks as of yet that we know about. And again, it's literally, I think he'll leave on a free in a couple of weeks or so. Because I think it's June 2020, so 2022. So again, I know there's loads of spanners. Should we say Daniel Amate for this one, or has anybody else got any overriding thoughts particularly?
We'll let them duke it out in the comments section.
I'm comfortable with the pick, to be honest. It's a fair one.
It's a tough category.
Really is.
Yeah.
It's a really tough category. Again, fine. We'll leave it up to you. The top comments again. Well, this one, if you vote down below, we will make sure to put a poll on Twitter, and then we'll vote from that one as well. So make sure you get a part of that. So anyway, so the next one we're going to move on to is the assist of the season. So in my opinion, I'm not going to lie, there wasn't too many that I could think of off the top of my head. Alex, I'll give the first one over to you. What can you think of that was for the assist of the season?
You know what? I'm gonna actually pass this one off because I've thought about this one, but like I said prior to actually recording, like my brain flushed half the stuff out of my head from this season. So when I was going through the Rolodex of highlights that either that I could remember or when I was actually going through highlights, nothing really stuck out to me. I could be completely wrong, and Glenn or Dan or yourself might have something, but I don't really have something that was the one that really, that I remembered, because there isn't one that I remember, which is weird to say.
Interesting. Dan, have you got any more?
Well, I know Glenn mentioned before we recorded, he mentioned Perez, but I actually had a different Perez one from the Man U game, and it's not, there wasn't anything special about it particularly. It was kind of a crap goal, honestly. He just we had just given up the equalizer to Man U, and he comes down the left and he just kind of shovels one into the box to Vardy, and Vardy shins it into the far corner, but it got us. The KP was bouncing. I was out of my seat. We went on to win 4-2. It was a fantastic goal in the end, but just to have, the drive to hit back quickly like that, that would be my pick. That's the one that stuck out to me, I guess.
I guess so. Glenn, I know you've got one as well. So I'll feel free to take it away before I don't want to spoil it too much.
Yeah, I got the Perez goal against PSV, where he took it down, flicked it up over the sliding PSV defender, who ended up somewhere near the hoardings in the end with a bit of egg on his face. Sold the next defender coming in, who also was sliding in, by cutting it back to Maddison, who, of course, smashed it into the roof of the net from about 12 yards out. Then along comes the traditional Maddison slide, and the PSV fans hauling everything across the pitch, and KDH catching a beer in it. That'd have been it. The only thing that could have bettered that was if KDH caught the beer and necked it, which I think I've seen somebody else do.
And then chucked it back.
Yeah. But yeah, considering the season as well that Perez has had, he's not been in the team that much, and to come in at the end or to come in certainly at that point against a massive game against PSV, and to be able to pull that off, I mean, that was limbs definitely for that. So yeah, Iosi Perez PSV.
I think so too. I agree with you. But again, I tried to look through and I tried to look at some of the statistics around this, and looking at James Maddison's got 12 assists. Harvey Barnes has got 13 assists. Kelechi Iheanacho's got 9. But in my head, I just couldn't think of one that goes, that was it. That was the moment where I was like, really, I was like, oh, really? That was an amazing assist. I'll make sure to note that down. Even though James Maddison's made some fantastic balls at times. Again, Harvey Barnes, I didn't realize in all competitions, 13 assists is fantastic. And Kelechi Iheanacho for the amount of minutes he's played with, 9 as well. A couple, 6 from, I think the next highest after that is Ademola Lookman, then Yuri Tillemans and Ozzy Perez on the same amount. But I think we can then, I think decide between the four of us as well that it would be the assist of season would be Perez against PSV for the first goal. Moving on to, again, we'll go on to the next one. So we've got the best team goal of the season. Again, this is a bit of a tough one to think about. So the best, so it's not just the goal itself, it's the build up towards play, including the assisters apart from that as well. Glenn, I'll start with you. What would be your best team goal this season?
You're going to see a bit of a theme here now with me and some of these where I'm going to give it with the PSV game again and the Ricardo goal. I mean, it might be because of the emotion of it all, but as much as I love a looping crossfield pass onto the toes of a striker or a no-look line splitting through ball to a running forward, I do like a bit of tippy-tappy stuff as well. You know, I mean, that one, it started with Lookman, who played a massive role in the whole goal. Obviously, he passed it to KDH, who immediately then went Lookman and immediately then went on at like a 45-degree run in towards the box. KDH then took a touch, passed it to Madders, who gives it straight back to KDH. KDH spotted Lookman's run and played the little ball through between a couple of PSV defenders. And I think there was somebody else in the way. Castagna, I think it was there, had the great sight for the fact that he knew that Lookman was coming through and thought, this ball ain't for me. And he sort of like got out of the way of it. And Lookman then takes it on the left-hand side of the edge and took a run direct towards goal, drew in the defender. And I was screaming for him to shoot. But he saw Daka coming in from beyond the penalty spot, side-footed it towards the goal. Fantastic save by what's his name, Mvogo or something, isn't it? I think his name is.
Couldn't remember. Can't remember.
He had a great game, by the way, as well. He pushed it out then towards what he thought was going to be safety, but who's there? Ricky P, and he still had a couple of defenders and the keeper to worry about as well. But from the edge of that 6-yard box, slotted it under them all, sent us all into a state of limbs. And throws up his celebratory salute and to all those travelling fans in the corner. And I think it was about 9.5 minutes after that before I actually drew my first breaths into goal. So I was going absolutely mental. Yeah, that was my best team goal.
That was definitely an amazing thing as well. Alex, have you got anything else for this as well in terms of best team goal that you've got down? Because again, that was a great one.
I do. It was against Man United. It was at the 1-1 draw out of all matches, but Man United had possession of the ball running up into the Leicester end, and right around half, KDH kind of did a perfect slide tackle and managed to gain possession of the ball and ended up passing it down to Barnes on the wing, and then when Barnes was carrying the ball, he ended up crossing the ball right directly onto Nacho's foot, and he was able to slot it in. I just think just the run of play was very much going into Man United's favor. The fact that KDH hustled back and was able to gain possession like that, and be able to sauce it up to Barnes and just quickly crossed it was just like, it was so brilliant. It was so efficient that it was just a really, really great goal.
It really was. Yeah, it's a great shout. Again, one that I didn't have down, but after you mentioned it, that was a great one. Dan, have you got any more thoughts on any of them, or have you got any more offers at all?
Not so much on this. I guess one that maybe stuck out to me was just actually Tielemans' goal against Man U, the big curler from the edge of the box. And it's not because there was great build-up play or anything like that. It's just that we all pressed as a team and won the ball back high up the pitch. It's a little bit different look at it, I guess, but I wasn't able to find a goal that we scored that just like really stuck out to me, and I completely missed the PSV one that Glenn was talking about. So yeah, that would be my pick. Winning the ball high up the pitch like that as a team goal.
That's a good way to look at it. I mean, for my perspective, yeah, that was a good one that you mentioned it again. I've got a couple more down that I've got, obviously. The goal for the Ricardo goal I've got down as well. Lookman versus Liverpool I've got is another one as well.
Yeah,
KDH down that right hand side, the little play, and then Lookman finishing it off, I think was quite a nice, like, especially down that left, they were getting a lot of traction, and then
hadn't Lookman won that one back too, like deep in our half,
right on the halfway line.
So he ran, I mean, a long way to get that goal too. So yeah, that's a good shout.
Yeah.
So that's one I literally I've just thought of 15 seconds as you were recording. I was like, and that one, the only one I've got which doesn't really count, but I don't know if this counts. Leeds 1-1, where we 1-0 down, I think from a free kick or a penalty, And then within
Went back
within
up.
20 seconds,
Yeah.
poof, we're one up from Harvey Barnes' great
Yeah.
strike. But I think the build-up, right, we're going to get back in this. And again, not because it was the best build-up play. It was just like, right, we're going for this. And that mentality was really good for that one as well. But I think just for the way Glenn explained it, I think we're all okay giving it to Ricardo unless it's anybody else for the PSV, because I think that was fantastic.
I like that.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So yeah, for the best team goal, we've got Ricardo, 2 for the second goal away at PSV for that one. So well done for that. The next one we've got is result of the season. So it's not necessarily in terms of not the best. It's in terms of not entirely the highest result, but a result where we scored loads of goals, but also that it meant quite a lot at the same time. Dan, have you got anything for this, or what would you say was your result of the season?
I have to pick the Liverpool 1-0. I mean, and I looking up earlier today, I jotted down what our starting 11 was on the day. It was Schmeichel, Castagna, Amartey, and Ndidi. Thomas were the back line. Chowdhury, Samari, KDH in midfield, Madison, and then Vardy and Iheanacho starting. And we got a 1-0 out of it. And yeah, the goal you just mentioned with Lookman and KDH linking up down the left-hand side, where he basically outruns Alexander Arnold for 60 yards to get the pass back from KDH. I mean, it was electric stuff. It was my favorite result of the year, probably. Interesting.
Now, again, that's one of them that don't think I've got down to that one. But Alex, have you got any other results or any other ones you can think of?
I've got 2. First one, I'm going to bring it back all the way back to, oh my goodness, earlier on in the season, the 16th of October, Leicester City 4, Man United 2. And that was the absolute shenanigans where Vardy scored in the 83rd minute, just after Marcus Rashford scored. And then I just remember it was absolute wins when that happened. And then Patson Daka scored in the 91st minute, and it was sealed. But I just remember even the commentary team was just like, well, Man United should have won this game, and they lost. And there was like no praise for Leicester City in that sense at all. It was like, well, I can't believe Man United fumbled this one. It's like, no, Leicester City beat you. And I think that was one. But my all-time favorite for this year was Leicester City 4, Spartak Moscow 3, where it was the Patson Daka show, just because it was just absolutely insane. Because I remember listening to that game, and we were down 2-0, just about to head into halftime, and then Daka scored in the 45th, so it was 2-1 going into half, and then I don't know what Rodgers said to him at halftime, but he just erupted, getting a goal in the 48th, the 54th, and then the 78th, and then becoming, I think that was the game that he became the highest scoring Leicester City player in European football action, which is like even more crazy. I think I have to give that game just because of the sheer craziness of it. And that honestly might be like the performance of the season by a player too in Patson Daka.
Yeah, I mean, that one was unbelievable. Now, I'll get back to a little bit about that. A couple of things that I've got in terms of that. But Glenn, have you got any other ones, or is there any ones in terms of result of the season that stands out for you?
I had the same as Dan. I had the Leicester Liverpool game at the KP in December. Like Dan said, we had Ndidi and Big Dan as centre backs, Luke and Timmy as full backs. Your hero, Hamza Mascherano, making an appearance there as well. Mo Salah looking for his 150th Liverpool goal, stepping up for the penalty after 15 minutes. Of course, it was then saved by Casper, and then Mo Salah then guided the header onto the crossbar with the goal gaping, which, of course, I was going mental at that, and to be honest, laughing as you do with stuff like that. I remember the crowd with this one actually being really up for it with this game. And so I remember that towards the hour after Lookman then, after just coming on, and Dan sort of mentioned it, started off with the ball around about the halfway line, gives it to Dewsbury Hall, and then Lookman just gave it. And then KDH then went down the left, and Matip stayed back off him. For some reason, he didn't come out where he had Van Dijk behind him. He could have covered, but he stayed off him. So then KDH filled that gap and ran into it. He then played the ball back inside to Lookman, who then managed to cut in front of Matip, and before Van Dijk could get across, he blasted it near post as he was sort of falling down. So, and with that game as well, we still had 30 minutes left to hold on, which of course we did. And to be where with that result, it wasn't so much for the result on the day, but then fast forward through to the end of the season, if nothing else, that was a screw you to Jota that stopped them from winning the league.
Oh.
Only because the fact of I couldn't stand the way Jota was after the penalties.
Yes.
So yeah, that was. You could say that we lost Liverpool the league based on that Lookman goal. So that alone would be.
I want to give it to that just for what Glenn said there.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a hell of one. Again, as you were saying, there's a lot of things I've just realized as well. And after doing some research, I'll just bring it up on screen so I can show you guys as well. I was mentioning two of them, the Man United result and the Spartak Moscow result were only a few days apart. They're only 4 days apart as well.
Wow.
So something to think about. Again, I didn't really clock it at the time, but something to just mention. Again, there was just, again, I don't think we kept a clean sheet the entire October as well, which is not too surprising. But just like
he said Wolves first game of the year because we kept a clean sheet.
Yeah. And somehow again, that feels like a long time ago, to be honest. That Wolves result as well. Again, 3 points away from that. Once I've got down again, I've got technically for these results as well. I've got the Moscow one. I've got technically Norwich 3-0, even in terms of result. There's a good goal difference there. Watford 5-1 as well. So, but I think in terms of that, what would you say? Give it to the Liverpool 1-0. I think everybody with the home one. So I was kind of piggybacking on that in terms of the match of the season, in terms of what was the best match that we played, in terms of what it meant as well. So in terms of that, we've got again. Alex, is anything else that you want to add? Because I know these two similar. I think we've kind of merged these two together. But is there any other matches that you can think of, or any other match that was like, yeah, this is a great match in terms of even just a game of football that was played?
Do you know what? I think the matches that we kind of discussed were kind of the highlight ones for me. You got the Liverpool-Leicester one that was great. You had the Man United-Leicester one, and you had the Spartak Moscow and Leicester one. And those three, when I really think about this season, those three are really, highlighted games for me. Just because they were both fun and stressful and memorable, to say the least.
Interesting. Yep, I've got them down as well. Glenn, have you got any more in terms of that as well, or any other thoughts?
PSV away for me with that one again. Just the whole occasion. I think like with any game, you build yourself up. There's all that expectation, and we've gone about the fact of it's the hope that kills you and everything. And I built myself up for that game of yes, we can do it, and then just the fact of just seeing the fans as well. I've seen a lot of fan clips from that game from both Leicester and from the PSV fans. And it's amazing. Some of the ones that are taken from the stand, looking up towards the Leicester fans, seeing them go absolutely nuts in that plastic pen that they were in. And oh my God! And I've heard a few people going about how it was like the greatest day out that they've ever had as a Leicester fan and things like that. And definitely, that one of the things I miss the most of being over here in Canada is away days with Leicester City. And that's one that I'm definitely jealous of everybody that was there. That's for sure. So yeah, PSV, the Ricardo winner. All of that stuff, that's the one for me.
Yeah, no, brilliant. No, I definitely agree there. And one of the ones that I missed, which I'm gutted about as well, but it wasn't to be. Again, finances have come first, unfortunately. So, Dan, I know I've kind of threw you in a deep hole, but is there any other matches that you can think of that you can think about?
I honestly just have to agree with Glenn on this one. I mean, winning an away leg in Europe after doing a 0-0 at home, I mean, that's immense, and to have the guts to do it. We had plenty of instances this year where the team have kind of struggled to close out a game. We've lost a couple that we shouldn't have, and it shows a lot of resolve to go away and do that. So that would have to be the match for me.
No, I definitely agree there. And I think one that I've just thought about and just realised as well, in terms of a match, would be 4-2 Watford. In the FA Cup, considering we had 8 fit players in that game, we had a load of under-23 players come through. We had Lookman playing up front on his own. I think in the Nacho, I think for that one as well. But we had literally our squad was beyond bare bones. We were recruiting. If you've got fit legs, get on the pitch at this point, because there was literally nobody. We had again Hamza Chowdhury, Vestergaard as centre back duo. We had Mark Albrighton as left back, which again doesn't happen. We had so many players. Lewis Brunt again, Marcel Madivadua, Will Alves, Lewis Brunt made a performance as well. So in terms of that, I wouldn't have it as my match of the season. I just have something that's a runner-up as well. But
was that the same game that they? Was that the same match that they contacted Glenn? So I'm pretty sure they wanted even Glenn to come over to play.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Anybody
back.
Yeah, we were pretty slim pickings, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was all over the place. But I think again, just from talking about, well, is there anybody that for that one? We've got PSV away, Moscow. We've got Moscow 3-2. We've got again 4-2. I'll give a short answer. Dan, what would you think for that? What would your pick be?
I guess my pick would still just be PSV.
Cool. Alex?
I'm going to say PSV.
Glenn?
PSV.
Awesome. I agree as well. So that's the first one I thought of as well. So match of the season would be PSV away as well for that take us through to semi-final of the Europa Conference League. In terms of to the next one, we've gone down to goal of the season. So this is one that's quite contentious. There's one that I actually disagree with Leicester City about this one. Dan, we'll hand over to you first. But what would be your goal of the season? Because there's quite a few.
I'll hold my hand up here because I honestly don't know which one the club got voted on by the club and which they picked.
Tillerman's Man United, I think it was.
Was it? Okay, yeah, I wouldn't have picked that one, and I won't pick that one. I think I got to give it to Maddison against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup. Won the ball back high up the pitch. He dribbles past Fabinho, I think it was, maybe it was Thiago, and then from about 25, 28 yards out, just laces it into the top corner.
Interesting. That's one actually I didn't have down, but it's a good one to think of. Alex, what would you think for goal of the season?
No, you got to come back to me. I'm trying to think right now.
No problem. Well, I'll come back to you in a bit. Hopefully, with some inspiration will hit you, or I'll give you a couple of reminders if not as well. Glenn, have you got anyone for this one as well? Because I know we've mentioned Tillerman's against Man United. Great goal, but I wouldn't have it as my goal of the season.
I'd even put that down as a great attempted shot cross.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, a great goal, and
yeah.
fair, if he did mean it, then hands up, great, phenomenal goal. I wanted to go a bit sort of like left field-ish with this, and it was partly not only for the goal, but also something to do with the celebration as well. I mean, like you say, there's been some great goals this season. I mean, even Brentford home and away had 3 goals on their own out of the goals in those that were fantastic. I mean, you had Yuri had a thunderbolt in that one, which was phenomenal. Just everybody loves a good thunderbolt goal. That may well be the people's choice. There was Madder's trademark free kick in one of those games as well, and then there was my choice was Castagna's postage stamp goal. I think that it'd be labelled as simple but effective. He came in for the edge of the area. He instantly knew what he was going to do, and you can see that he nudged it slightly further in field to take out the central defender who would have been slightly in the way otherwise. So he pushed it out to the side. He then just laced it and lasered into the top corner, giving the keeper no chance. But then going on to the Sally, he then ran off and he had that holy shit moment with his hands over his head, like, oh my God, what did I just do? And that in itself sort of like did it for me. The fact that he doesn't score that many, but he's a great defender, and I do like a good goal from a defender. So I'll give it to Timmy for his goal against Brentford.
Good shot.
Interesting. That's one that I've got down as well. And again, the Tillerman versus Brentford one that's probably still travelling if the net wasn't there and the stand wasn't there. It was unbelievable how he hit that one. Another couple of ones again. I'll hand over to you, Alex, if you've got any more that you can think of. If not, I've got a couple more maybe that you could expand on.
Was going through Rolodex and I remember vaguely was it the Albrighton goal against Rennes? I think it was because nobody expected a goal like an absolute belter from Albrighton. Let's be serious here. I'm pretty sure Vardy was screaming Kevin as loud as he could. But just I think the whole the way, because like I said, the run of play, and then out of any player to score a goal like that, it's Albright. And I think just that everyone calls him nobody really gives him the credit that he's due, because when he does play, he can really help the squad in so many ways. And I think that just that one goal I still remember, just the way that it went in. And we talk about those types of goals. Madison scores those goals, Vardy scores those goals, or Barnes, or like nobody says Albright. And for me, like I still think about like it was just a really nice goal. And coming from a player like Albright, I think you got to give credit where credit is due.
Give us the lead too in the first leg of a European tie. That's
exactly
big.
Yeah, and it sat again. It came across from Barnes, and it was like, it's there for you to hit. Go on. And half the crowd was going, oh no, it might just ping into the stands, and he absolutely laced it, which is brilliant. I've got two more.
I was going to say, if it was in Ndidi, it'd be like to the moon.
Rosie.
It'll be Ndidi, or it will be the same shot. Like it would. Ndidi's just got that in him. He's just. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. I think the two that I've got actually is a player that we've mentioned before for a couple of awards as well. Both of his goals, KDH. I've got KDH against Napoli for the way he took down that goal, and he scored it beautifully, his first ever goal for Leicester City. Yeah. And the second one I've got is KDH for Crystal Palace. If you remember a couple of weeks, if for the second goal we went 1-0 up because of I think Maddison, and then KDH loops it over the keeper on his back. Had no right to go for it. So that's the one I've got. Again, I've got the Brentford one. I've got the Tillemans Brentford one as well. Liverpool. So I've got quite a few. But again, if you had to choose any of one of them, Dan, which one would you choose?
I guess it's a tough one. I mean, I if we set aside the Madison one I mentioned, then I would probably say, like Glenn said, everybody loves a thunderbolt, and I loved the way Tielemans hit that one at Brentford. I couldn't get over it. I mean, you don't hit a ball better than that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good one. Alex, would you say any other ones, or what would you say? Because again, we're trying to come to a conclusion on this one. I know this one's going to be a divisive one.
I think I'm going to go with the Yuri one, because I'm pretty sure that was the one that I downloaded off of one of the Twitter download video accounts, and officially got my account suspended for sharing data, for sharing video. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with that one, because that was the one that killed my first Twitter account.
That's biggest L of the season, isn't it? In terms of that, but yeah. Okay, we've got that one. Glenn, would you agree with that on Tillemans? Because again, there's so many good ones this season.
Yeah, I think if I wasn't going for Castane's postage stamp, then I think I would go for Tielemans Thunderbolt.
Can I just say about the Castagna one? I agree with you. My favorite thing about that goal, other than it being a solid hit, is just that nobody's more surprised than Timmy Castagna.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mendy running behind him looked like he just like you wouldn't see that face on him if you saw somebody get struck by lightning. It was just it was hilarious.
Yeah, so again, we give it again to Tielemans, but for another goal that he's going to again give Brentford. I'm not sure that I agree with people who say the Man United one was the best, but the Tielemans one versus Brentford, again, fantastic goal. Then we've got second to last one. We've got best debuts. This is a player that's had their best debut for Leicester City. Glenn, we'll start with you. Who do you think's had the best debut for Leicester City?
I think KDH, to be honest. Coming in, everything that I've already mentioned about him earlier on. He bided his time, did his time with the likes of Blackpool and Luton. Came back and was ready to fight for his place, straight away. And, for a team that had the likes of Maddison and Tielemans in it, that had to be tough for him to. Well, I mean, fair play to him. He obviously thought the fact of, no, I can make my way into this team. And I think he was pretty much, player of the season at both Blackpool and Luton when he was there. You saw it online that people were raving at him at both clubs. And so he believed in himself and against, like I say, a tough midfield to break into. But he did. It's got to be daunting for him, really. But he nailed it. And I think he's going to be an absolute superstar. And I hope that he's going to be an absolute superstar with us for as long as possible. And that's probably going to be the hardest thing now over the coming maybe not the coming 12 months. I think we'll be fine with this next season. But if he continues the way that he is, it might be difficult to keep hold of him after that. But so yeah, I've kept KDH for best debut.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be. I know it's going to be quite an obvious one as well. But I want to give again, Alex. Is there anybody else that you can think of as well that had a good debut this season that's worth mentioning? Because I know KDH is pretty far and away with quite a few of these results, to be honest.
Like, you can give your shout outs to Lookman. You can give your shout outs to Daka, because I feel like they provided like great debuts this season. But I'm with Glenn on this one. I don't think you can really. You just got to give the shout out to KDH, because he came into this season, and I think when you look at who he was competing against, there's a high likelihood that nobody was going to say KDH at the end of the season is going to overtake Yuri. He's going to be the main midfielder for this club, and he just blew expectations out of the water. If you presented me with you have to choose between Yuri Tillmans and KDH a year ago, I'd be like, KDH is promising, but Yuri is Yuri. You ask me that now, I go KDH, like no questions asked, KDH. So I think I got to give it to KDH on this one. I do want to give a shout to one player, because I think he didn't play much. He barely played any minutes at all, and it was actually in the Watford game when we had 8 players. Will Alves, 16 when he debuted. Like that's a statement right there. Sure, he didn't play a lot, but I think you got to give credit where credit's due on that. 16 years old, and I think when we were recording, that the post match for that game, and I always was like, what were you doing at 16? Because I sure as hell was not playing against Watford in an FA Cup match. So I think that's just like the little shout out that I'd like to give is Will Alves, a 16-year-old, really just jumping in and playing.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's one that I've got down in terms of that, and not in terms of, oh wow, amazing performance, but the fact that he's making his debut, and he did pretty well as well for considering he was 16 as well. But
he was exuding confidence for a 16-year-old. Like,
had
a couple of those guys on strings when he had the ball.
Which is so exciting. I mean, just to have a player like that just makes you grin from ear to ear, because you go, right. Dan, again, is there any other thoughts you've got on any of them players? Because again, it's quite, within there, we've got Casey McAteer, who did his debut as well. We've had Lewis Brunt as well. I'm not expecting you to know anything too much about them as well. And one player that I haven't mentioned that has a debut, even though it was his 4th season with Leicester City, Danny Ward. Technically, this was his debut season in the Premier League. This is his first match he's ever played. I'm not expecting you to pick any of them, but just give your thoughts or any other thoughts you've got on any of them.
Honestly, I was pretty excited that anytime we're bringing academy players into the first team and they get a sniff of that, that just makes them hungrier. So seeing Lewis Brunt around was always good, and I enjoyed that he was getting first team action, getting on the field. Like Alex said, Alves is an exciting player. Can't wait to see more from him. And honorable mention to Daka, because I mean, going from a new signing to being our top scorer in Europe inside of a season is a big deal. But I would have to give it to KDH. I mean, he muscled his way through how many midfielders we have. We sent one on loan. We tried to loan out, another one or more, 2 more, and a new signing came in, and he still gets in the team ahead of him. So I mean, it says a lot about his character, his work ethic, and how much he's willing to go through for the club.
Yeah, and how much as well that he's gone out of his way to make himself go, I am this starting position ahead of somebody like Yuri Tillmans, who when we've played when he was ill or was out of that game, we didn't look like we missed him. Yes, it was a weakened Watford side, but no one's going, we're missing Yuri Tillmans, don't sell him, blah, blah, blah. So it shows you, again, the quality of player, and the ceiling's just going to go better for him. So in terms of best debut, I think it is no question in this one. It would be Kieran Dewsbury Hall. Now, for the last one, we've got to kind of tie up. It'll be very similar to the first one, but we've got Player of the Season as the big last award. Glenn, I know we've touched on probably a lot of these before, but who would yours be for Player of the Season?
I think I said earlier about this with a story of 2 halves of the season. I mean, you had at the beginning. I'm going to give it to Maddison, but he finished it so strongly. was a massive reason as to why we finished 8th and not 14th, or maybe even worse. My only worry is that if he thinks that his only chance with England is if he is at a so-called big club, that might be an issue. But of course, I hope he stays and that he's going to be a massive for us next season. But I think for the way that he's improved this year and the way that he's got more into the fact of wanting to get the ball, rather than just maybe waiting for the ball. He's been involved a lot more, and he's seen the fact of his areas that he needs to improve on, and he's gone out there and done it. And he is a confidence player, and I'm just hoping now with the end of the season that we've had that he can then kick on with that, because I think he's going to be big for us now. I don't think he's going anywhere. Close season. Like I say, there's only really that niggling little thing to do with the fact of the so-called big club than maybe getting to England. But I don't think it'll matter. I don't think Southgate likes him, and full stop, for whatever reason. So hopefully he's going to be one of our talismans for next year. Certainly with Yuri being gone, which everybody assumes is going to happen. So I think he's going to be our main guy.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. And again, there's a lot of, there's a few pension, but again, Maddison is one I've got down. Alex, over to you. Is there any player of the season that you've got down as well, apart from James Maddison?
Ultimately, I'm going to give it to James Maddison. Glenn said it all, but the two shout-outs I don't want to give to KDH, because everything we've discussed about KDH, I think that warrants, at least, a debate in the sense of that he definitely has, the right to hold best player of the season in my eyes. Another player I'm going to say is Jamie Vardy. And I think a lot of people would be like, why Jamie Vardy? He got 15 goals in 25 games this season in the Premier League, and he scored 17 and 33, amongst all competition. He's not a young guy, I think he's 36 next year. And if he's still doing that, imagine a fit Jamie Vardy all season. Like, let's be serious here. Like, he scored 15 in 25, and he was fully fit this season. 25, 30 goals, we don't know.
Like, he just needs 18 to take over Mike Lowen's record for them being 10th place for all-time Premier League goal scorers. Yeah. That's the one that we want.
Yeah, for sure. Like, that's definitely it. But like I think, there's been talk amongst, the supporters, I think, throughout the season, with Vardy being injured and people saying, well, he's not the same player that he used to be. He's getting older. Put up pretty good numbers. It's hard to say that he's still not, that he's still producing. I don't think there's going to be a drop off. I think there's going to be more of the sense of like, Vardy won't be playing as much as expected. I think he's going to come on more as a sub. He'll start games, but I don't think you're going to see the outcome. But at the end of the day, he could still be one of those players. And I think, he blew my expectation out of the water, because I wasn't even aware that he scored 15 goals this season until I started actually researching it and like looking at it the last game of the season, be like, oh, he's got 15 and 25. That's insane. So I think that's a big shout that I'd like to give is Vardy.
In 15 and 25, again, as you were saying, the goals per 90, Jamie Vardy's on 0.75, the top joint with Mohamed Salah, considering the season that Salah's had. Is up, and the credit that Salah's got, again, he could literally be one for underrated player of the season, because there's not a lot of people talk about Jamie Vardy, considering his age, considering the amount of minutes, considering the injuries. Again, phenomenal.
And you also have to look at the age difference between Salah and Vardy. Like, that's in itself.
Exactly. Dan, have you got any other mentions for player of the season?
Ultimately, I would agree with everybody that spoke so far on it, but I would maybe just give a shout out to Kasper Schmeichel too. We haven't mentioned yet today, but he's still a great shot stopper, and he's kept us in a lot of games that we shouldn't have been in. And yeah, a couple ricks in him too, kind of like a Marty this season. Everybody can. We know his shortcomings. Doesn't come off his line enough. Doesn't distribute as well as we would like. But just keeping the ball out of the net, that alone has kept us in games this year several times. We've chatted back and forth in the private chat about how we'd be 3-1 down here and there throughout the year. But ultimately it's got to be Maddison. There's no other player like him in the team. Gets the ball in the half turn. He's the one that drives us forward. And I think he's the guy that you built the team around going forward. It has to be him next year. You know, you keep him and Didi, Vardy, and Fofana. That's the spine. Yeah. Others want to move on. Maybe, I mean, there's obviously not a lot that can be done about some of these people that want to move on, but Maddison, I think, is crucial. And yeah, my player of the season by a mile.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And in terms of Maddison as well, there's a couple of players I think if they stayed fit, they could have pushed him close. KDH being one of them, and also Fofana. I think them two, if they're fit, we're looking at this going, we're scratching our heads going, God, this is really hard to pick from. Considering the performance they've gave coming back, well, KDH could be in his first season and him not playing that many games at the beginning of the season, and Fofana for the same reason, for the injury and his time getting back into the game, and thinking his first game was against Rennes and he scored, and you just noticed the level as well. So I have to give them to a shout out, but that is it as well. So I think we'd all agree for Maddison player of the season as well. Again, if you have any other awards that you want to talk about, leave them in the comment section down below. Like Dan, Alex, Glenn for coming on. Really appreciate it. We've managed to get around to it eventually. Again, it's just been, it's only a week or so since the season's finished. We've managed to get some time off. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe. Thank you to everybody that's made it so far in this video as well. We really appreciate it. If you like, subscribe, all that good stuff, make sure to follow these people, down in the description. We'll see everybody in the next video. So goodbye.